Hello everybody, and welcome back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about Parasitic Oppression Part 2, The Empire Strikes Back. Now this is a continuation of my experiences dealing with parasitic demonic oppression that I experienced for over a year and a half. The outward expression or oppression that I experienced is outlined in Parasitic Oppression Part 1, and you can view that if you want. But after dealing with my issues that I talk about in Part 1, like being choked by things I couldn't see, being scratched, having marks put on me, and even picked up, levitated, just to name a few. I had somebody come to my house and they said some prayers, and we anointed some of these areas with oil, and it seemed to do the trick. Like the outward oppression, all of that seemed to go away, and things kind of seemed normal for about a month or so. But there was a second phase to this, and I was ill prepared for it, but let me kind of just go into that. So about a month passed when I started experiencing, I would have these just numbness that would, it would primarily be on my left arm, and it would start at from roughly where the top of my arm, and it would just shoot down my left arm. But this would happen. It started out happening once every 2 or 3 days, and then it started happening every day. And it would only last 5 or 10 seconds, but it was just, I didn't know what to make of it. Just some weird thing. I thought it was just, I don't know, something to do, an impinged nerve or something. So I didn't really mind it too much, but from there, things started to progress. The next symptom that I started to have was heart palpitations. It felt like my heart, it was skipping. It would skip a beat, and it was almost like a giant thud in your chest, which is kind of terrifying, actually. Because obviously you can't do anything about that. So these episodes. And when that would happen, by the way, these episodes where I had these, what I perceived to be heart palpitations, they were followed immediately by numbness. That numbness that I initially started to have, they would follow these palpitations immediately. Right after I would have that, I would get that shooting sensation of numbness down my left arm right after. So it's, of course, the idea of heart attack is going through your mind, but I didn't, at this time, I'm still just kind of hoping it's all going to go away. Now things just kept escalating. There was one night, and most of this would happen when I was at work, and I worked to midnights, but there was one night where this combination of palpitations and followed by numbness, it happened 5 times in 1 hour. And at that point, I had enough. Like I had to go to the emergency room. They hooked me up to all kinds of EKGs and all kinds of things. And luckily, things subsided. Everything came back negative. So they released me, and I ended up getting a stress echocardiogram, I think it is, and they were looking for blockages and things like that in the valves and things like this, blood vessels, and everything checked out. So there was no obstructions. Things were good for a little while. Things died down. So that seemed to subside. And so things died down for a bit after that, but then I started experiencing a new set of symptoms, and that was I was experiencing shooting pains in my extremities, like my fingers and my toes, as well as like an extreme thirst. I was constantly being thirsty. Now, at this point, I was wondering, well, maybe I'm starting to question if my symptoms were related to diabetes, possibly, because some of these, issues, circulatory issues, thirst, some of the things that I've kind of heard associated with diabetes. And I should mention at this point, I'm thinking this is all just a sequence of health-related issues. Like, I'm thinking that this parasitic, demonic thing that happened to me is in my past. Like, I'm not drawing any connections here. I'm thinking these are just random things happening at this point. So I started having all these issues with the thirst and the shooting sensations and my the pain in my fingers and toes. So I decided to get some more blood work done, and I ended up getting a requisition form from my doctor to have the blood work done. And the day before I was going to take the blood work, I actually finally clicked in that, I wondered, could this all be a continuation of my previous experiences dealing with this parasitic demonic oppression outwardly. So I decided to listen to a video that I downloaded on something called spiritual warfare. And all spiritual warfare is, it's just it's a series of commands, basically. And these commands are spoken to these parasites, demons that may or may not be present, in your body. I'll probably talk about more about it in my next video. But these parasites, these demons, they're subject. There's like a chain of command, and they're subject to commands issued in the name of Jesus Christ. So when I started to listen to this video that had a lot of these commands, and without getting into too much detail about that, when I started to listen to this video, all hell broke loose, and pun intended. Nothing was happening. I started listening to this video that I downloaded, the audio portion of it, and like I said, all hell breaks loose. I start getting these shooting pains in my toes, fingers again. Heart palpitation happened. All of a sudden, feeling nauseous, like I was going to vomit. And then all of these horrible thoughts just started flooding my mind. And this lasted pretty much the duration of the period of time that I listened to this video, which would have been, 10 to 15 minutes. So that pretty much told me that, and as soon as I stopped listening to the video, or the audio, of the video that I downloaded, that's when all the symptoms dissipated. So it was pretty crystal clear to me that whatever was affecting me was, it in turn was being affected by these spiritual warfare prayers. So it was at that point pretty much that it was crystal clear to me that all my symptoms were in fact being caused by these parasites, these demons. And they were trying to hide their presence behind known sicknesses, illnesses, diseases. So they were attacking the various systems of my body, my organs, but they were trying to get away with it. Like, they were trying to remain undetected. There's an intelligence to this stuff, and but there's like these ground rules. It's really bizarre, and it's almost like a court of law. They're very legalistic. Like, you have to understand what your legal rights are. It's this whole thing. I'll probably go into it next video, but so things just escalated. And so now the cat's out of the bag. They know I know they're there. They know I know they're there. So things just sort of escalated to another level. So I started to use some of these, spiritual warfare techniques, and I started to fight back using some of those tactics and other things that I picked up doing research. So there was kind of a stalemate that was happening. I started to, I was able to kind of keep these some of these things at bay, but another phenomena manifested that I was not prepared for at all, just sort of right out of left field. So I don't have recall of my dreams. Normally in the past, I would just sleep a good 6-7 hours, not remember a thing. But I started, for a period of about a month straight, that all changed. And I started having these dreams where I would be offered food or drink. And so sometimes and that's all I would dream, is these dreams where someone would be offering me food or drinks. Sometimes I would accept it, and other times I wouldn't, but I was always presented with this choice. And, again, I don't know. I'm just assuming maybe I didn't eat enough, but it's like a month straight of going from no recall to only having dreams about having people present you with food or something to drink. But I always had there was this period in the dream where I had this choice presented to me. Do you accept it? Do you come into agreement? And sometimes I would, and sometimes I wouldn't. So after this month-long barrage of dreams where I would accept these food or drink offerings, this is where something really pretty bewildering started to happen. I started to see a tiny flash of light would manifest in front of me in full waking consciousness. And I would say it would probably be about 3 feet away from me, usually at eye level. So there would be this flash, a flicker of light, a spark, not a big, like a tiny flicker of light, kind of at my eye level, about 3 feet away. And then from this initial flash of light, that would disappear. But from that would emanate, I don't know, best way I could describe it are these two segmented silver cords. And I'm going to try and put up a graphic here so I can give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. But one of these silver cords, which seemed to be made of 3 segments, one of these silver cords would go to the left, my left, and one would fan out and go to my right. But they would take this elliptical sort of path to reach me, but they would sort of maintain the way they were approaching me. They would proceed a little closer to me, then they would blink out, and then they would reappear closer, but they were both in the same position on the left or right of me. Then they'd get closer, then they'd blink out again, and then they would ultimately they would both meet up and they would intersect roughly where my heart is. And this whole phenomena, I would say, this whole process would take about 2 to 3 seconds from the time when this flash occurred to the times when these cords, segmented silver cords, would reach my chest, heart area. And again, no idea. I had no clue, no idea what's happening now. And this would happen at least once or twice a day that I would observe it. And it went on for some time before I finally figured out what was even happening. So it turns out when you are sort of in a weakened state spiritually, these parasites, the demonic elements, they can come to you in your dreams and offer you food, drink, gifts, and if you accept them, it forms some sort of like a soul tie or a connection to you that they can in turn use to send you sickness, illness, diseases via these like silver cords. And biblically speaking, these, I found out later that these things are referred to as fiery darts, evil arrows, fiery darts. And So I was like, this whole phenomena, this went on for a while, because I didn't even know what to make of it, what to do about it, no clue. So these things were connecting to me, and I don't know, probably sending me sick, like when they're probably giving me sickness, illness, and disease. Now, you can cancel these things through spiritual warfare, but so much damage had been done before I even kind of got wise to what was happening. And around this time, after a period of time of just receiving this, just these darts, arrows, whatever, silver cords, whatever they were, I would continuously get lightheaded pretty regularly. And this is before I figured out what was going on. And so I decided to get some more blood work done, and it was revealed that my blood platelet levels were abnormally high. And to the point where they immediately referred me to an internal medicine specialist. And I live in Ontario, Canada, and we have free healthcare. So it normally takes a while to get to even see a specialist, but these numbers that they were seeing for my blood platelet levels were so high, they were afraid that like I was going to have a stroke or something like that, because your blood flow to your brain can be affected by high blood platelet levels. Blood platelets help to, they help your blood to clot and prevent you from bleeding continuously. But if you have too many of them, it can block the flow of blood, the blood flow to your brain. So I got called, like the internal medicine person, I got an appointment the next day because they had never seen anything like it. That's how high these levels were. So they gave me this medication that they give to like cancer patients, and it's supposed to reduce your blood platelet levels. So I was on that. But yeah, I'm of the belief that these fiery darts were the cause of all these blood-related issues. Now, before I kind of move on to anything else, I came across some really interesting videos, or a video that I wanted to share with you because, man, I think it might tie into some of these like with these arrows or darts or these silver cords that I was seeing, because these silver cords, again, when I would see them, there would be, like I said, they seem to be like 3 separate segments. They would move, they would progress towards me, they would blink out, and then they would reappear closer. Then they would move, blink out, reappear closer. But so their movements were really pretty interesting. The way they looked were interesting, and they took these interesting their path, the orbit that they took to reach. Like, they didn't take straight lines. So I came across some real interesting videos, and I just wanted to show you because I think there might be a tie-in to some of the things I experienced. So let's have a look at a video real quick.
Some of the more spectacular lights that I photographed were lights that occurred later on in the case. We recorded a sort of pea pod looking light. It looked like an object with 3 little cotton balls in it, and it actually traveled throughout the frame, and it disappeared for a frame, actually blinked out for a frame, and one object actually entered her head.
Barry didn't show me this film footage right away. It took him a while before I finally got to see it, because they were afraid of what my reaction to it would be, which was that of fear. It freaked me out to think that this thing was inside of me, or that these lights were going inside of me. It was bad enough having them around me, but it was a very weird feeling, when I saw that film, and it still is. Every time I look at it, I get a weird feeling.
Well, that was kind of interesting, I thought. Anyway, when I first saw that video, I was kind of floored, because there was some things that were very relatable to some of the experiences I went through dealing with those silver cords or arrows or darts, however you want to refer to it. And the first thing that stuck out to me is when he mentioned, like, they look like 3 pea pods. I think he referred to them as such, and that's kind of what I saw. Something that had three kind of segments to it. But then when he mentioned they pop out of frame, that's exactly, I saw three things that would progress towards me, then pop out. They would disappear from my vision, and then they would reappear. So again, just interesting, because obviously we're dealing with something unnatural, and this is related, I think this was related to like a UFO abduction case, and there was activity surrounding this person. But so that was interesting. And then the third thing, but yeah, so some similarities to what I was seeing. And what I didn't mention about this phenomena is that at first, for about 4 or 5 months, every time I saw these things, they would always go to a spot right around my heart, my chest, heart area. But then after about 5 months or so, then they would always go to the back of my head. So they stopped going to the chest, and they started solely going, again, 2 of them branching off in each direction, same kind of elliptical pattern, but they would go to the back of my head. And he was talking about, at the end of that clip, that they saw some of these things going to the back of this person's head. And I was just, wow, that kind of hit home for me. So there's several components, even though it's not an identical match, and these things are moving a lot faster. But interesting tie-ins for me. And there's this phenomena commonly referred to as flying rods, also known as air rods, sky rods, and skyfish. Now, I think this phenomena was, in 1994, I believe it was, sort of came to public consciousness, and these people base jumpers were being filmed. And when, again, you never realize they're there until you watch the camera footage back, the film footage back. And this is where this phenomena kind of started. And they take some of these elliptical arcs, paths that they take, very similar. But I kind of wrote this off at the time because it just, insects, if you film an insect, kind of, I don't know, but I could see it having a similar look. I don't know, but again, some of these arcs that they were taking, very similar to what I was experiencing and seeing, but just weird phenomena. And this is just one of these. It's moving so fast. It's being, in a still frame, it's being captured several times. But there was a Russian crew who was looking into this phenomena. If you type in skyfish, I think you can find this little 8-minute documentary. But they were trying to capture these things, and they managed, I think they were filming in wintertime, which would not lend itself to these being insects, but they managed to capture one of these things. And they even took some footage in a club, and there's a sped up version of this where this thing just darts across the background here. But they captured a still, and what was interesting is it appeared to be in segments. So again, I saw what I was seeing. This is almost identical what I was seeing, but it was 3 segments. So between the segmented nature, the way they move sometimes, the way they go out of frame or out of focus, they just sort of disappear, and that there seem to be 3 sections to them in some instances. Interesting tie-ins for me. And you also see this stuff underwater. Somebody captured this footage, and I just kind of took some stills of it, but they appear like this is exactly how they looked if this was segmented in 3 parts. So they kind of look differently depending on how far away you are from them, but they're underwater as well. But interesting stuff, man. I know we've kind of veered off here, but I don't know, I think there might be something to this phenomena, and I just kind of wanted to bring it up because it was interesting to me. So let me wrap it up here real quick. So in conclusion, I guess I just want to leave you with is that these parasites, these demons, they need your agreement. They need your agreement to do everything they're doing. But they can kind of trick you into getting that agreement. And the primary means that they use is through people's thoughts. Because I didn't even realize, probably until about 2 years ago, that not all of my thoughts are my own. And so people probably don't even realize that most these negative thoughts that they're getting constantly, they're not their own, but they seem like their own. So if you come into agreement with it, that opens the door for these things. And the more you accept these thoughts, the greater the door is open to them. So, and the second means, which I just found out, is through dreams. That's another way that they can access you, is if you come into agreement with things through dreams, which again doesn't seem fair, but it seems like that's a factor. And I also learned too that they can come into agreement with you through your generational bloodlines. So if your ancestors opened the door to these things and they got into the bloodline, unless their presence was canceled, you can expel these things through spiritual warfare to get rid of them from the bloodlines, but they'll travel down the bloodlines. So I think that's kind of why these royal bloodlines, and I think that's sort of, again, speculating, but I think that's might be a reason why they try and keep these bloodlines pure, because these parasites move through them. So speculation on my part, but I guess I'll leave it here. And I just want to mention, we'll be doing a part 3, because there's so many more things that have happened and that I learned, and some things I think are being hidden from you and from all of us, actually, that I've come across. So that's going to be in part 3. But until then, take care. Bye.
They're a mystery called rods, flying translucent creatures that could be all around you, even though you can't see them. But what are they?
They have legs, they don't have eyes that we know of, or teeth. But it's a cylindrical shaped object, like a flying pencil.
As strange as they are, they've been spotted all over the world.